So, mentoring is the relational process where one person empowers another for growth and development, reaching goals and doing God's will. Now, we call it an intentional thing. Sometimes people go, oh, I suppose I'm mentoring so-and-so. Well, do they know you're mentoring them? It's just a kind of relationship where they know and you know, and it's quite deliberate action. Okay, so some people split these words up and give them different definitions. Rob and I are simple folks. We just talk about any one of these words all meaning the same thing. Okay? So a biblical example, of course, is Jesus. He was all about all those things there. He lived with them for 3 years, very close relationship. They saw everything he did, and he was constantly training and teaching and mentoring and coaching and discipling. And then he said, go therefore and what? Go therefore and? Thank you, Phil. You're on the ball there, mate. Make disciples. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Are you making disciples? Have you got anybody that you're making into a disciple? Yes, you. It's very important, Rebecca, and I know you take that seriously. Yes, very much. And teach them, it should be. Teach them to do everything I have told you. So we should be making disciples. Now, there are mentoring chains in the Bible. Jesus mentored the 12, and they 12 mentored Barnabas and so on down through the New Testament. You'll see that they were mentoring people as they were going around spreading the gospel. Now, there are different ways of being mentored. This guy is an up-and-coming youth speaker. He's a brilliant guy, and he was training people. In his early 20s, he was training people how to be a public speaker. And I said to him, how come, Sam, like you're 22 and you're training people older than you how to speak? How did you do this? How did you learn this? How do you know it? And he calls Rob and I his spiritual grandparents. And he said, YouTube. His mentor was YouTube. So he had just got the best speakers on the planet, and he just watched them and he analysed them, and he analysed and watched and analysed until he got their methods down. He'd go, how did he keep that concentration? How did he keep that attention span? How did he get them to laugh there? How did he get that response? And he just analysed it all until he got it so well that he was one of the best and he was teaching others.
So that's great, except for one thing, and that is there was no feedback to see whether he achieved. He had nobody actually speaking back to him and saying, oh, you got that wrong. And so it was a one-way thing. It's good, but up to a point. You see, it's very clear as you read through the Gospels that Jesus was giving his disciples feedback. And they were getting that, and some of the feedback was pretty vitriolic. You know, they, get thee behind me, Satan. So we need to understand that's great for input, but it's not complete discipleship, because there's got to be that full cycle, the feedback aspect of it. Thank you.
All right, so examples of mentors in your life might be some like mine. My parents were mentors. That's my dad there. Older siblings, I had an older sister who was a mentor, and she was pretty, what was that word you used about Jesus? Vitriolic. At times. Grandparents can be your mentor, your spouse. I mean, Rob definitely mentors me. The other day, I did a presentation at Yarram, and after I got home, he went, that PowerPoint needs fixing, Liz.
Oh, yes.
Too many words on one line. Not enough gaps between the words, and too many. All right, dear. So I spent the next couple of hours fixing it up, because I submit to you, don't I, darling? Don't I? So a spouse can be a great thing. Though I said to Rob, just in the car coming here, I said, I know I can get out of hand and I'm loud and I can be dominant, but I said, I know that you're watching me and you'll rope me back in again if I am, crossing over the line. And I'm grateful for that. So he's my mentor. Friends can be mentors, peers can be mentors, corporations have organisation into mentor education. Nowadays you're not a fully trained teacher until you've had a mentor for 1 year. You've done all your uni course. It's 4 years now, isn't it? And you've done your whole 4 years. Everything's fine, but you're not a teacher until you've done that next year and it's a lot of work with a mentor. And so they've got a lot of churches have interns now. Where they're being mentored, and buddy systems operate in schools where a little child starts first day at school, they give them a buddy, and sometimes they have buddies like 6th grade buddies for the preps and that kind of thing too. Tertiary students are often introduced to that system, and of course apprenticeship is a classic system of mentoring. So I want you to discuss with somebody next to you or in the room somewhere, who influenced you, okay, and there's no wrong or right answer, okay, and how did they influence you? Who mentored you, who counselled you, who discipled you, who trained you, and how did they do it? It's a good question, 2 questions to ask, because it can help you to understand how you can do it to someone else or how you wouldn't do it to someone else. Okay, so off you go, and we'll pause it.
Just with this mentors, that's right across the board. That's everything: work, home, anything that you might have, organisation you might have been in, and all of those things. People would have been speaking into your life.
No, I listen.
Actually, Peter and I have those conversations, I say now. We've talked about this several times. That's still happening. It's usually me that coaching Peter.
Ah.
What are we going to do about this?
It's a two-way street.
Or the sleeping church. Or, you know.
I think Rob rescues me and he saves me and he protects me by just a look, although
Yes, that could
he knows that I'm just going to go too
I
far.
must watch that look so I can use it too.
Yes, he probably was, Gabby. Yes, Ben, she's saying. Okay, we'll stop there. I'm going to sing a song to you. Will you be quiet and listen to me? Time for talking is over now. Time to listen to this big fat cow. All right, who said their mum was the one who influenced them? Dad? Grandparent? Friend? Anyone else? An auntie? Oh, that's interesting. Mm. Yes, yes, yes.
You're really name dropping, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really good. And did you answer the bit about how they mentored you?
And also just with the VR stuff.
Ah, yeah.
How many hours was I speaking at your place? Way too many.
You got something you want to say?
Now, I noticed none of you mentioned anything about employment. Your boss. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. 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 stray votes, all right. Yeah, those are the sort of things that you need to think back. And when you do that thinking back, you actually realise just how much input people have had into your life. People that were rubbing shoulders with you on a regular basis. But there's also the occasional type of mentoring. You may hear somebody say something, like in a sermon, or just in a class, something, and you think, going to remember that, because that's a valuable input, and that you might call an occasional input.
Okay, so, no. Okay. Well, what I've done is because Janice has just heard this talk this week, I changed the graphics to make it more interesting, and I missed some of the words. Those things which you have heard from me, this is what it says. It's 1 Timothy 2:2, and Paul's saying, the things that you've heard from me, that I've passed on to you, Timothy, in the presence of many witnesses, entrust these to the faithful who will be able to teach you also. So it's 2 Timothy 2:2. So what we have there is, number one is like Rob in my life, and that's Paul, and he taught me in the presence of many witnesses, and then I taught one of the other pastors' wives in our church, Leanne, and she actually had a group of women that she mentored. So that's a mentoring chain, okay? Rob to me, to Leanne, and then to the women that Leanne was. 2 Timothy 2:2. So in Ballarat, which is the last church we pastored before we retired, we had a mentoring chain. There was Rob, and he mentored this guy called Phil Tong, who was the youth pastor at that time. So for 16 years, he met with Phil every Monday morning and mentored him. And Phil caught on, and he thought this was great. So he had his young adults. This one's called Nadia. And he had a group of young adults, and he actually had a big youth group. He built it up from 2 to about 60 or 70 or maybe even more. And he would train the young adults to mentor the youth. Okay, so Nadia was one of the ones he trained. And Nadia then had the job of mentoring Helena. Now, they met weekly and studied, and Phil had told them how to do it and worked together. And it was Helena came to the Lord, and she became anxious or keen to get baptised in water. And so Nadia came bouncing into me when I was mentoring her too, as she was an intern at the church. And she came bouncing in one day, and she said, Helena wants to get baptised, and I think I'm going to baptise her. And I said, oh, Nadia, don't get too excited, because her parents will probably want to baptise her. You know, they've raised her, and they've probably been really anxious to do it too. And she said, oh, okay. And then she came back later on, and she said, guess what? The mother, Helena's mum, actually said to me, there is such a change in Helena's life since you've been mentoring her. Nadia's 18 or 19, you know, and she's mentoring a 14-year-old. There's such a change in the 14-year-old's life. We want you to baptise her. Yeah. So there's your mentoring change. So success is watching people that I've taught teach others. It's not just me teaching them. So Phil's success was watching Nadia teach Helena. Rob's success was watching Phil teaching Nadia, who taught Helena. A mentor is a cheerleader. You know, you've got someone, you go, you can do this. Don't be shy. You can get up in front of people. You can do this. Let's work out some ways that you can get this better. You're a listener, an empowerer. And the thing is, they might exceed you. They might outshine you. They might be better. Like all those 16 years Rob put into Phil, we expect him to be better than us. He's going to grow a bigger church than us. It's going to be more influential and more successful. And what will we be doing? We'll be rejoicing. We'll be so happy. We're not going to feel miserable and comparing and jealous and, you know, why couldn't we? It's just a thrill to us to have trained him and then him train others. A mentor is a friend, an advisor. You don't have to be a counsellor. So, you know, if you're listening to me and thinking, I'm not a counsellor, I can't do this. You don't have to be a counsellor. You don't have to be very clever. You can be a supporter. You can be a challenger. Better is open rebuke than love that is hidden. So it's better to speak. You may have to at times say them like Rob did. PowerPoint's hopeless, you know. He didn't really say it as strongly as that. The faithful are the wounds of a friend. You see, I don't mind Rob speaking to me because I know he loves me. I know it doesn't alter our relationship. I know he wants the best. He wants me to do the best that I can. So it's good for him to give me ideas and tips and challenges and criticism. So what would you like help with? You know, it might be your temper. It might be finances. So what you can do is go to a coach who helps you with finances. It may not be the same person that helps you with marriage problems or learning about BI. Unforgiveness. You need to exercise. You need help to access porn. I don't think that's what I meant there. Get over it. Cooking. You know, a lot of people nowadays when they get married, they haven't learned how to cook. They don't know anything about how to cook. They might know some fancy things from the baking shows and cooking shows. Do you want help with your homework? Do you want help with jealousy? Is that a problem? If you've got too many demerit points, do you want to learn how to handle them? Hate, relationships, parent trouble, your appearance, doing regular Bible reading. So you could go to someone and go, I struggle, I can't do regular Bible reading. How do I keep doing this in a good... I'd say go to Beck. She'll teach you how to read the Bible regularly. So this is our church in Ballarat. And Rob actually, when we got there, it was a church that needed fathering. And he said to the guys, he said from the platform, you know, if anybody wants to be mentored, I'm prepared to do that. And immediately several of the young guys who had known him, because we'd always been running training courses for the CRC, for ministry courses and things, and so they already knew Rob, and they were like, quick as anything. Yes. But he also took the people who were leaders of the team, like the music team leader, the children's work leader, youth leader, all the leaders, and he would gather them. Well, he wouldn't gather them, he'd do them one-on-one. And perhaps you could talk more about this, darling, because you're the one who actually did it. A pointer. This is a pointer. See, that one.
Yep, give it to me.
Oh, you wanted it? You have to hold this too, darling.
All right. See that guy there? He was a very shy person, and he's brilliant in certain areas, but he wasn't the sort of person that could run a team or anything like that. And God put certain elements in our life so that we can be who He intends us to be, our destiny. And, you know, I wasn't going to be able to actually teach him to be a team leader, or he wasn't good in a team. But he was excellent working on his own. And he had a job and in the local library where he was responsible for setting up systems and things like that. And he was really, really good. But when it came to actually holding people accountable to work those systems, he wasn't much good. He actually would, hyperventilate. And so he struggled with that. And so I sat with him and really worked with him so that he could be the very best person that he could be, not trying to make him into something that he couldn't be. And that's the secret, really. You see, I asked him questions. I didn't make suggestions. I said, okay, what do you think the answer to that situation is? And because the answers, God's put the answers in people. And a lot of the time, all they need is somebody to come along, and the Bible says, provoking one another to love and good works. And so as I asked him those questions, he began to come up with the answers. And as a result of that, I would say then, okay, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? And then the next time I met with him, next month I met with him, I would say to him, how did you go with those things? And he would report back. There'd be that feedback so that I could move then on to whatever was next.
You're brilliant, darling. So Rob ended up having 23 people who came once a month and had an appointment with him of probably an hour or 2 hours each. And he wasn't interested in having them as a group, because he felt that if he had them one-on-one, they would open up to him about private, intimate things that they might not say in a group. So he would always do that. And he would set up appointments at the beginning of the year. He'd say, okay, we're going to meet once a month. When does it suit you? Okay, let's put it in our diary for every Tuesday morning at 11 or every Monday morning at 7 or whatever it was. And so that just came around. The months just came around like that. Is there anything else you want to say, Don? Okay, so asking questions is the important thing, as Rob said to this guy. What is it you want that you're struggling with, that you want to have help with, and then listen to the answers. Listen to the answers. It's not easy because you want to keep giving the answers, but you need to listen to what they're saying. And we found that, when we're in our van, we often have people coming and from the church that we're ministering at, because we go for a week to each church. And so we're parked there for the week, so they'll come and they'll come in. They just need help. We've even had pastors come in and just walk in the door of the van and collapse on a seat and sob. Just sob. A complete stranger. First time we met him, he did that. He said, "I need help." And sometimes they talk about things and it's so complicated, and you think, "Oh, I haven't got any clever answers for that." But the interesting thing is, you only have to listen. They just want someone to talk to. Why do you think people pay astronomical sums to go to therapists and counsellors? You can get you for nothing. So we just let them talk. And they'll get up and they'll say, "Oh, that is so good. I feel so much better." And we sort of look at each other and go, "Well, it wasn't anything clever we did anyway." Unless God might give you a word of knowledge or a word of wisdom to give to the person, that does happen too. But mostly it's just they want to talk. They just want to unburden themselves. So if you can be a coach that just listens, that's all you need to do. Just listen. So listen to everything they answer to see where they're coming from and see if they understand and they're processing your questions, getting answers. I've seen Rob, we were at a church in a Baptist church in Adelaide, and we were having lunch with the team and we were talking about mentoring, and Rob said, "Is there anyone who wants to, I'll just do a quick mentor now. Is there anyone who wants to?" And the pastor went, "Yes, me. And so Rob turned to the pastor and he just immediately switched from just having lunch, eating a bit of lettuce, or something, and started mentoring the guy. And I saw the change in him to do that. He just started pulling these questions and pulling the answers out of the guy, and the whole ministry team were watching as he did that. It was a good example. You don't want to do it now, do you? It was powerful. You have a little think about it. So you see, they've got to come to the answer because they know more about the situation than you do, and it's their culture, and it's got to be their way of doing things. You can't sort of implant it on others. I remember Rob, he had a guy come to him. I don't usually know what goes on, but I've heard this story. And he said, "I want to learn the scripture." Do you want to talk about that guy who tried to memorise text?
Yes, he said, I want to learn the scriptures. I want to memorise them. And so I'm going to memorise. I said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to memorise the scripture every week." So that was going on. And after about 3 months, I said, "How are you going with your scripture memorisation?" He said, "I'm not doing too bad." He said, "But I'm finding that they're falling off the back of the truck." The ones that he first memorised, he was forgetting. Now, a couple of things we need to understand about that is, one thing, very important, that when you memorise, when you put the effort into memorising a scripture, it goes into your subconscious, and the Holy Spirit is able to bring that scripture back to you, even though consciously you may not think, if somebody said, "Quote such and such," you would say, "Oh, I can't, I don't know." But when the Holy Spirit prompts you, he brings it up to the surface and enables you to remember. But anyhow, he was struggling, and I said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" He said, "Well, I think I'll make it, spread the time out, give myself maybe once once every couple of weeks rather than once every week. And so gradually he worked out how he was going to be able to retain the scriptures that he was memorizing. So it was a simple thing, but when he first said once a week, I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be interesting. And because I thought, how he's going to go, trying to memorize one scripture and hold it in there for the rest of his life. And but he really realised when he actually began to do it. I didn't criticise him or say to him, don't you think that's a bit too many scriptures at once? But no, he actually had to come to that experience himself. He had to realise, because you see, sometimes we want to protect people when, it's better for them to find out for themselves through maybe experience that they can't do that. And so by allowing them to fail, in a sense, the freedom to fail, we actually empower them, because we're actually helping them set goals that work for them. Not goals that work for us, but goals that work for them. So it's better for them to realise, this is too many. I'm doing too many scriptures, trying to memorise, and then I'm forgetting them. But rather, it's important that they learn from their own experience that setting a slower pace sometimes can actually be more rewarding.
So it's important to ask good questions to discover who they are and God's will and God's purpose, and help them to become self-aware. So you've got to think about questions. Rob's got, can you think of any quick good questions? We're talking about mentoring, love.
I was thinking about the last point. Okay.
We can think about it for it, and I'll come back to you.
Well, when we see, we've got to rely on the Holy Spirit. Amen. We see he's not there just, to make us look pretty or look good, but he's there to help us. One of the first names of the Holy Spirit was the Helper. And so most of the time, I could give you a list of suggestions and questions that you could ask, but they might be totally inappropriate to you for that situation that you're working with. So really it is better for us to learn to listen to the Holy Spirit. How do I form a question that's going to help this person, to enable them, to empower them to achieve the goal that they want to achieve? Now, it may not be the goal that you want them to achieve, but it's better for them to grow in the area where they feel God has called them. And even though we may be a little bit unsure as to how that's going to work out, knowledge is no weight. There's no weight with knowledge. You can carry a bundle of knowledge and not even realise that you're carrying it. And so and often, I don't know whether you realise, but many employment jobs, some of the knowledge of previous employment can come over and be transferred into the new position. And so when you're actually teaching people to find a job, I had this huge sheet that I'd got from the CES back in those days, and it had over 2,000 jobs on there at all levels, in various levels. And I'd say, well, you're at, what level do you think you're at? Are you going to be a lawyer, or are you going to be a street sweeper, or whatever it is, at what level? And then I'd say, okay, well, look through this, because they were graded in different colours, and these are the jobs, because most people only know a few jobs. If you ask them to list a few jobs, ask them to list all the jobs that they can think of, they maybe come up with a list of 20 if they're lucky. Simply because they don't know what jobs there are, but they know their father's job, their mother's job, so on, and uncles and aunts, cousins and brothers and sisters and things like that. But that exhausts their, so you open up a whole lot of possibilities. And what you're doing when you're doing that is you empowering them. You're enabling them to see a much broader perspective. And so, well, I could do this, I could do that, I could think, and taking experience from one job into another. How many of you have done that? You've taken experience that you've had in one job and you've brought it over into a new position. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that really answered the question, which was, what's a good question you could ask when you're mentoring?
Okay.
My random husband. We'll talk about it later, Gabby. So, this is a gorgeous example I love of mentoring. This guy is Richie Seltzer. He spoke at one of the CRC conferences recently, and he's an evangelist, and he's off to go and do an evangelistic trip. But can you see the little head poking up? And this is, you see, he's mentoring, deliberately mentoring. He knows he's off with his son. He's just loving having his son with him. They're teaching him to move in the prophetic and pray for people for healing, and he's off with Daddy. They're both excited about it. Isn't that lovely? So there's a great example of mentoring. So there are things that you can mentor, areas. I keep saying Rob because he's mentored dozens and dozens and dozens of people over many, many years, and I really haven't mentored all that many. But I know one guy said to Rob, he said to me, Rob's mentored me for so many years, and if a Mack truck came along the highway and it was going to knock him over, I would jump in front to save his life. That's what Rob means to me. He said he's just everything to me, and I wouldn't be in the ministry if it wasn't for him. And so I do honour him for that. So while he's on mentoring somebody, he's got in a mental list of the areas that he needs to cover. And he wouldn't cover all these in one session because he's listening to the Lord and he's going, well, the Lord might say to him, it's the man's job he needs help with right now. Or physically he's struggling and needs some areas of help. And if they're in the church doing a ministry, well then that will be something he probably would touch on each time. I've been outside the house doing the gardening, and somebody will come along and they go, oh, can't wait for my appointment with Rob, knock on the door and go inside and have their time with Rob. And then I've seen other people come out going, oh boy, I needed that. So that's why any of you can be that. Any of you. You sow your life into other people. So they might be in any of those areas they might need help with. And you might say to them, look, I don't really feel that I'm so clever in the area of finances. Maybe you should go to someone else, and maybe you've got a name that you can drop for that. So people are getting really clever about this. Now, this is me taking at Kingston, one of the churches in Melbourne. They like me to come every year and do the kids' work, teach them how to hear from God and how to be filled with the Spirit. And this is me at that church. But I was at another one. I haven't got a photo of it. And when I walk in, I never have any trouble with the children. They sit up and they behave themselves. And, I can have up to 50 kids and they just galvanise and their eyes are open and their mouths drop. And God's gifted me that way, that I can do that. It does help that I am a trained teacher. But this girl said to Anna, who was running the children's work, how did Liz do that? And instead of Anna saying, well, look, she did this and she did this and she did this, Anna was really cluey. Anna said to the girl, so what did she do? How did she do it? And she made the girl think, oh, yeah, she did this. As soon as they ran in, she took control. Oh, yes, she didn't let anyone call out. Oh, yes, I see how she kept their attention by changing activities all the time. Oh, yes, she got them to stand up and sing with her ridiculous ukulele. So Anna encouraged the girl to analyse what it was I'd done rather than give her the answers. So that girl owns that now. She thinks to herself, well, I can do that. I know I'm going to practice doing some of those areas. So when you're mentoring, you ask them what their goals are, and then you ask what they want to be involved in, and then you get a fire plan.
We had a guy who was having problems with pornography, and he was coming on a regular basis, and we were working through some of those issues. And when he first came in this particular day, I said to him, how's things going and what have you been up to? And he said, well, we had the CFA come and they wanted to get all the people in our little hamlet together because they're living on the edge of the state forest. And so they came in, and one night they set up this class for all the people in that little hamlet, and they taught them how to develop a fire plan. What do you do when the fire's rushing towards your house? And so he went through that and told me what to do, and I remember one thing I remembered. The last thing you do when you've got a fire racing towards you, you bring in the doormat. You put water in big cans at the corners of each of the house, and then the last thing you do, you bring the doormat in, because if the hot ashes hit that doormat, it's going to burn. And so you bring that inside and you shut the door. And okay, I said to him, that's pretty good. That's great what you've told me. I said, now, just going back to what you told me about last week, now, what's your fire plan for that? And he sort of looked at me rather surprised. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you told me how you prepare yourself for a bushfire to come rushing through. Now I'm asking you what your plan would be when you are suddenly on the computer confronted with pornography. And I don't know whether it's ever happened to you, but sometimes these things just pop up. And he said, I don't really know. I said, well, what about over the next month before I see you again, that you work on developing a fire plan for this particular situation that you're struggling with? He said, yeah, I'll do that. And so the next time he came, the first thing we talked about was his fire plan. And he'd written it up. He had it all in points that he systematically went through, that what he would do if he was confronted with that. And he had the answer. The answer was within him. The Holy Spirit was empowering him to do what he wouldn't have been able to do if he hadn't have done his preparation. It was the preparation work that was helping him. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you, darling. So just an example, this is our property in Ballarat, and one of our sons said, oh, Mum, Dad, we're thinking of going back to live in America for a few years, and we need to store all our furniture. We need to store all our furniture. And you have 5 acres, don't you? And so Rob said, all right, we'll put a shed up. So my son, he was the administrator at Tabor at that time. He took a day off work and came up to help Rob build it. It was Rob's day off. It was Friday, and he was supposed to be just, doing stuff, my jobs mostly. But this guy broke the rules and came around and visited Rob to get some advice. And he had a dilemma, and he wanted to know which way Rob thought he should go, this way or this way. And you see, Rob's not going to say, we'll go this way. That's not mentoring. He's learnt nothing. He's got no skills. So he talks through with this guy, and they just explore the possibilities and the challenges and the outcomes, and then the guy makes up his mind himself. So now he's got some skills. He's got some problem-solving skills. So he goes off not just with his answer, but an answer that he's found, an answer that's got skills to it. So Rob comes back to our son, who doesn't operate like that at all, and it takes him about 45, 50 minutes to talk to this guy, to talk about this dilemma, which wasn't really a serious dilemma, but he just wanted advice. And so our son goes to Rob, what took you so long? And Rob said, I don't give answers. I draw the answer out of them. And he was sort of saying, we're here building a shed. It got done. So we won't worry about that one. So with youth, if you get some youth coming into the church, find someone who can mentor them in the church. The best thing you can do, the best thing to do is, of course, remember their name. That's the first exciting thing, to be able to call them, hi, Andrew, next time you see them. But a genuine nurturing relationship is amazing. I mean, some of you guys here, you've got so much wisdom. Yes? A few years ago. That's fantastic. Well, reactivate it, Sue, because a few years ago, it's not recent, is it? The skill. So you can do it, Sue. So find somebody else to do it with. There's so many people around who have no mothers and no fathers and don't have good relationships with their grandparents, and you can be that person in their life. Rob and I, in the last couple of years of our ministry at Ballarat, we switched roles, and the guy Phil, who'd been the mentee, became the mentor, and he started running the church, but with Rob sort of keeping an eye on things. It's called an executive pastor. So it's a good way to do a transition. So he said to us, would you like to run young adults? And we thought that was rather hysterical in our 60s, running young adults. But anyway, we had a fabulous, fabulous time. Those kids absolutely adored Rob particularly. And they would literally sit round his feet and just imbibe the air that he was breathing. And he was training. But anyway, so we had this great group. They came every Tuesday and we adored it. We had such fun. But we're training them how to use the gifts of the Spirit. They were giving messages and everything. It's all happening. But the thing I want to tell you about is Rob saw these young men as not having fathers or grandfathers. And so he went to them, he made out a list of guys in the church who could mentor these guys, and he matched up what he thought would be the best young adult with the best older man.
We talked about it with do you think that you'd be able to mentor that young man? Or with the young man, would you be happy to have that person as your mentor? We just didn't dump it on them.
Glad you told me that, darling. It worked really well. That's what I'm just saying. The cross-generational thing, there was probably 40 years between them, and it worked really well. So if you have someone coming in, they don't just have to be young, but someone new coming into the church, grab a mentor for them. They need somebody who's going to teach them how to read the word and how to, pray in tongues and how to choose the right kind of movies to watch and all that kind of. They need somebody to walk with them step by step. It's such a huge step, like for Andrew, who's done that. It's a huge step for him. I don't know whether you're just all as a group mentoring, which is fine, but it's probably better if somebody comes in like that to have a regular mentor. Now, Rob only did it once a month. That was his time. He couldn't have done 23 guys every week. But with somebody like Andrew who's just come into the church, he probably does need somebody once a week to teach him how to open up the Word of God and how to study the Word of God and what resources there are and
how to help him sort of develop in his Christian walk.
Yes. So, but there are also people in your church who've been Christians for a long time who could still do with mentoring. So, I mean, it's worthwhile you looking around now and going, hey, I think I need mentoring. I wonder who I can go to get help. And you don't have to have a long-term relationship. You could just say to them, look, let's just give it 3 months. Let's just work together for 3 months. And let's meet once a week or once a month, whatever suits you. But look for somebody who can give you that benefit and look for somebody that you can give the benefit to, both ways. So,
Pastor Chris, he actually has told me on a number of occasions he used to go to the city to actually get stock, and then on the way home he would drop in on Liz's parents and spend time with Tom Foster every week. So he was getting mentored.
Yes, he would recognise that too. So look for somebody who's a godly, growing Christian. If you want a mentor, you think, that sounds like a good idea. Not someone who's going to make you dependent on them. You don't want somebody who's going to make decisions for you and make you feel like you've got to go running to them every time you need to do something. We're teaching them to be independent. So the mentor and the mentoree, we may change mentors over time. You may have more than one mentor. And ideally, you're a mentor and a mentee. A mentee. How you mentor depends on your capacity. As I said, Rob didn't find it good to do it as a group, but Phil, the guy that he trained, Phil did do it as a group. It worked for him. Your availability and your style, and you can do it all different ways. It does take time, though. It does take energy, and it sometimes it's not convenient. But if you think it's worthwhile, remember Jesus said, make disciples. Are you making disciples? Have you got somebody you disciple? Has anyone here got someone they disciple already? There's a room full of wisdom and knowledge and yes. Can he? You better get ready to give prophetic words.
Most of you know that I have a shop in Sale, and so I'm trapped in my business basically. I can't leave because I don't have anyone else there to watch the till. So I have to stay there. But I get people that drop in. They're not coming in to buy something from me, they're coming in to spend time with me. And I have a young individual, well, when I say young, he's younger than me, but he's 40-something. And he pops in from Bairnsdale, and after he'd been visiting with me for so many months, you know what he said to me one day? He said, "This is the only opportunity that I have to talk with someone." So you can understand how all of a sudden that makes, as a Christian, when you hear words like that. He lives in a town, he's got absolutely no one that he can have a conversation with and talk to because he's paranoid, doesn't trust anyone. And just the start of this month, our business was shut down, so I wasn't there the day when he gets to talk to one person. I wasn't there. And so the following week when he come in, he was so, they get like hyper, just, I'm so glad you're here. Like I come the other day in your clothes and I thought, what's happened? That sort of thing. But this is what's happening in the world. And it's not only about just mentoring people within our organisations, it's the people out in the world. They need it so much. I had another gentleman who used to come in and see me, and he was actually either my age or a little bit older, and he was such a lovely fellow, and he moved out of Sale back to Morwell, I think it was, and I never saw him again. But I had a young lady come in my shop, and she goes, there's a guy in Morwell that speaks very highly of you. And he, as a friend of mine, she said, and he just wanted me to say hello. And so the end of this story is that this guy ends up taking his life. And I find out through another person. And then the next time I see that young lady, she hadn't seen him for a while either. And so at the moment, she's finding out whether this is true or not. And then she'll come back to me to let us know. Because a lot of these people, they've got nothing left. They're on their own, and they do need us people. They need all of us collectively, just people we run across. It is an important thing.
Thanks, Fred. Well, this is a challenge here. So look around the town, look around the church, look around your family. See if God highlights somebody to you. Yes, I could work with that person. And then ask them, if you want to be mentored, ask them, say, would you be prepared to mentor me? And the first reaction is probably, oh, what, me? What, really? But you've got something that they like. You've got something that they need. You've got something that they want. So pray about it. Don't just say, oh, no, I don't think I could mentor you. Pray about it and see what God's got for you. Or if you're looking for someone to mentor, go up to them and say, hey, I just felt God was saying to me that maybe you could be the one. What do you think about that? But, think about it, because God said to Jesus, make disciples. And Jesus says to us, make disciples. So it's a bit of a challenge,